My name is Dorothy Buckhalter. I'd like to talk about charter schools in Louisiana. Why are we not working? Why is it not working for Black children? And how much money the state of Louisiana allocates to charter schools. So we want to talk about why are charter schools not working for minorities. Charter schools are allocated funds from the state to educate our children, but we're still third nationwide. Hidden racism, reproduce inequalities through charter schools. Institutionalized racism, policies and laws are made to create inequalities in charter schools. So reproduction of racial inequalities by schools to the prison pipeline, zero tolerance policies created in private schools or charter schools, children are expelled for minor infractions. Colorblind, harder to see modern racism, the challenge, and to confront these woes. Why does charter schools, why don't they answer to, who do they answer to? So $5 billion is allocated to the state of Louisiana for Louisiana education. Where are we now? We're still third on the list for poor education nationwide. Education is not valued. Instead, the charter schools are used to institutionalize racism. So the third in education from the bottom from the list. Why are stipulations are not made when money is allocated to charter schools? Why are they? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. Why are there is no protocol put in place nor proper audits? The state passes the responsibility. The system is manipulated for private sectors, for any group to do the bidding of the state. And they do not educate, ignores the needs of our children, operate independently from the public schools by profit or nonprofit. We exempt from state requirements. They receive public funding. However, teachers are not certified and they can pick any curriculum, they can, change the curriculum at any time without any accountability or stipulation from the state. They're free to do what they want. They're allowed to do what they want to discriminate against ethnic groups. A clear message is sent that they do not care about our children. Charter schools receive public funding. However, some charter schools are allowed to have assessments for entry for students to enter that school. And that is against the law, and no one is saying anything about it. So they're permitted to do this, and which keep a certain group of children out, and including disabilities. Still a form of segregation. They advocate and they protest. There's no accountability against the law. Grants are given and some schools close, some never open. Mandatory assessments tools are used to close charter schools and money is wasted. Or that was their plan, to stay, in the game only for 4 years, which is usually the contract amount of time if they don't get their grade up. But they don't mind because they've already received the money that they have been given. Meanwhile, our children are suffer from academics. Approved for Louisiana, third on the list for poor education. We have to ask ourselves the questions. Is the school system for profit? Or is it for the kids? It's big business. It's charter school operation. We operate under charter school hospices in any other place in the United States. Our country is changing how we earn money. So we have to be in place, or have our children to be in place or positioned or postured to receive economical growth. Economical growth in the aspect of being marketable and being up for the task, up for the challenge with the with how we're going to do business economically. So our children are not left behind. We don't want them left behind. Minorities are last on the list for education. So we say that education students, every student should be successful. And this is the act of governing policies. Children are more than data. They're more than just a dollar. And, they get money per pupil. We must trust our teachers to teach our children and to, advocate for our children. Our parents must be supportive and our teachers must be supportive, and it counts on Capitol Hill. We have to make changes from this vicious cycle to prevent this from, being a detriment to our children as a percentage or statistic, I should say. Hidden racism in charter schools, systematically denied opportunities and basic rights to fairness of education, and blind justice system for African Americans. Systematically replacing old racism, effectively implementing modern racism, colorblind. Not the colorblind that we say, oh, I'm colorblind, I don't see what color you are. No, that's not the colorblind I'm talking about. I'm talking about denying a group, saying there's no discrimination, denying them of their discriminating experience. We're being discriminated against. So we have to make awareness and point out those hidden agendas. So colorblindness, racism, hidden institutionalized racism in charter schools, disappropriate numbers of African Americans, especially Black males, are being incarcerated from schools, the prison pipeline, charter schools. They're getting penalized for minor infractions, zero tolerance. The reasons behind this vicious cycle, because the truth is incarceration has always has an impact on minorities. There used to be a policy way back in after civil rights, not civil rights, the Civil War, and the fact that we were free, and then Black men were allowed to vote. Women weren't even allowed to vote yet, but white men could vote, Black men could vote. And at that point, they had Abraham Lincoln was killed, so nothing was implemented economically. It was a 40 acres and a mule, but nothing to merge Black people into society once they were free from plantation. So a policy was put in place, a law was put in place. If a Black man did not have a job, he went to prison. So that's the history behind that. So truth is, incarceration has always impacted minorities in the United States. Black men are sent to prison 13 times for drug charges as opposed to white men, and 5 times the rate of prison time. Institutionalized racism, this is implemented in charter schools, and it's a process that carries on till it gets to the point where they are in prison. And it's all conditioned, it's all processed, it's all on purpose. Institutionalized racism in our educational system is deeply ingrained systematically. Racism policies are put on students, and Black minority students have a disadvantage. We must confront racism in charter schools, and not to remain silent. Louisiana, we know, passes the responsibility after Hurricane Katrina, passes it to the private sector. 90% of charter schools operate education for our children that they don't care about, and then they don't know anything about our culture. So what they've done is they passed after Hurricane Katrina. They didn't want to have to renovate the schools. A lot of schools had lead, so it was a big problem. So they allocated to these small entities to apply for charter schools. And all you need is a business plan. So the business plan for charter schools And then, like I said, they pass a responsibility. Then they focus on the data, and the children. Each child is per child is allocated. You're allocated so much money, so they're grabbing at the for they say school choice, but it's not school choice. But they're governing and they're discriminating. You're not even having a choice of picking your schools, but they're saying that you have a choice, but it's all smoke and mirrors. So the narrative, children have test anxieties, and not a true measure is not measured, and the charter schools are then closed because of these testings. So racial marginalization, erasing racial experience with the forms of oppression, denying a group oppressed their experience, and these assessments ignores all factors. This is called colorblind ideology. This is an ideology term. So reproduction of racial inequality. Louisiana State Board Elementary, Betsy Board, uses one application. I jumped the gun. School choice, but not school choice. You can go to private schools and be funded, but students must come from a failing public school or a charter school. Zero tolerance. Black children are, like I said, 4 times, or on a whole, everyone, minorities, 4 times, Black children specifically, 4 times likely to be suspended than white children. I said 13 times, Black males are 13 times more likely to be penalized. But this is for Black children, boys and girls. So ignores the needs of minority children. Okay, for instance, first grader bought aspirins to school, so he was expelled for having aspirin. Okay, Zach, let's just call him Zach. It's just a name I made up. Takes care of his brother. Father is abusive. An alcoholic comes in one evening and waves a gun around, and as if to shoot them, both him and his brother. So father passes out. Zach, let's call him Zach, takes the gun to school to his principal, so the father can't threaten him with it, nor his brother, and seeks for help. He was expelled by the authorities. Authorities were called for him bringing in a gun to school. So this is what we're talking about. So reproduction of inequality, and they ignore the needs of our children. It's just big business, and that's it. So I want to leave you with this. We don't have time to fight a system, charter schools that are broken. Okay, it's not for our children. We must be concerned with our children's education and how they are educated. Thank you.